this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everyone coming to you in the image of Kalima. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It really helps me a lot. And don't forget to check out my website, paradxastrology.com. I can help you with anything. And if you would like more exclusive occult videos that I don't post on YouTube, consider subscribing to my Patreon. It also helps support this channel. Okay, let's get into this video. Let's talk about the lunar eclipse that will be occurring on October 28th in Ashwini. The regions that will be able to see this eclipse and will be affected the most. Now remember, everybody will be affected in their own way, and this depends on your own personal chart. This reading is mostly mundane and for the world, so don't take it as a personal reading. It will be visible in Europe, Asia, Australia, Africa, North America, much of South America, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, Arctic, and Antarctica. On your screen here is the cities that will be affected as well. Now, this will fall on the birthday of Lakshmi, and it is called Sharad Purnima. It is a holiday in Hinduism. It is believed that on that day, the moon shines with all 16 kalas, and also its rays have certain healing properties, which will nourish the body and soul. And it is also believed that the moon rays of that day drip nectar. Now, usually it doesn't fall on the eclipse. So the fact that it does, it could be signifying something that we have to pay attention to in the matters of Venus. And I will explain that as well. So it is not advisable to do any spiritual practices on that day since it is an eclipse. But if you do it before the eclipse, you will have the same rays available to you with healing properties. And there are many other reasons why we celebrate this day, but I won't get into that just because this video will end up being way too long. So this will be occurring in Ashwini Nakshatra, which is translated into born of a female horse or horse woman. Beyonce started her world tour when Rahu was in Ashwini, and it ended a month before it exits. The symbolism for the album was her riding a horse. Coincidence? No, because this happens every 18 years. And this is a very good example of Ashwini. It conveys a new beginning, but this is also the final eclipse in Aries. So it's a conclusion to what we've been dealing with for the last 18 months, because that's where we've had the eclipses. So once the nodes change, we'll be entering a whole new karmic cycle. This can be either November 1st, or if you use the true node, this will be on November 28th. The true node is what's true to the sky. I tend to lean more towards that one, but I think they all have validity. And it isn't a physical structure, so that is another reason why all of them can be seen as accurate. Its alternative symbol is a horse carriage consisting of two horses carrying two people, and it relates to the material transportation on Earth or traveling between different worlds, realms, or planes. So the material world, and having this happen on the day of where we celebrate Lakshmi's birthday, can show us that this could be affecting Venus related themes, but also Mercury, as Mercury is transport. And Mercury will be conjunct Mars, its enemy. That signifies problems with transport, health, and war. And I will explain that. Ashwini Kumaras are two celestial horsemen that are regarded as the main deities of this nakshatra. Their names in Sanskrit translate to bringing help and truthfulness. So the emphasis on these two brothers, they actually come to bring help. So remember, eclipse season can bring some unexpected events, and everyone always thinks it's going to be negative, but it can be positive as well. It can bring some amazing things out of nowhere. So let's focus on that. And the changes that do occur that may seem negative, they have to happen. And in the end, it's for your benefit. So this is a time where problems can be solved. Look at the house where Ashwini is, where Aries is in your chart, and that will give you an idea of where you can get help from these two brothers. They are also seen as celestial physicians. So this nakshatra has a lot to do with healing in very many ways, and the power of herbs natural healing, the ability to cure or fix any disease, and they aid in childbirth and marital problems as well, which we can see that some will encounter that. So it all depends on your karma. This is also good for repairing vehicles, machinery, learning new things, occult practices, spiritual practices, and slowing down the aging process, because they're known that they can actually bring the dead back to life and bring the old to a state of being young again. So Rahu is at the Gandanta point. So for that reason, we have the wars happening, especially Mars and Mercury being together, which are enemies. So this is why we can see some unexpected events. The Gandanta point is a point of challenge where we can see some unexpected challenges pop up. Now, whatever you thought was dead can be brought to life, like I said, and it is a remover of obstacles represented by Ganesh. And he's also used to darker energies. Remember that. Ganesh is the number 4, which is also the number for Rahu. So he's used to having to make miracles out of nothing. So that's another thing to keep in mind. It's very spontaneous and can make anything happen out of nowhere, especially during the eclipse, because those are very unpredictable. So if you didn't learn from your mistakes in the past 18 months, because this is a conclusion of what's been happening, if you didn't learn that, then it may create another event in your life for you to learn that. So make sure that you learn it this time so that you can complete this cycle. Also, make sure that you slow down and gain enough knowledge before you act or react, because you might regret it later. Now, the professions that this encompasses are anything to do with horses, equestrian professions, gamblers of all types, healing professions. That can be present-day physicians, or that can be more alternative healing, natural healing. Counselors, surgeons, marriage counselors, childbirth specialists, those involved in any promotional or motivational jobs, campaigns, physical arts like dancing, transport agency, athletes, herbologists, gardeners, teachers, educators, racing in any capacity, motorsports, for example, stuntmen, researchers, anyone involved in laying foundations or the building of structures, law enforcement agencies, soldiers in general, mechanical engineers, any engineers in any profession, goldsmith, and small business owners and shopkeepers in general. We have Grahan Yoga, which will be happening. That's when the moon and the sun come together with Rahu and Ketu, and they create sudden calamities. There could be problems on the professional front. Confidence sometimes can suffer, feeling inferior, and can affect relationships. Mental problems, health issues can pop up, personality disorders, emotional issues, especially because Saturn is aspecting the moon, which can cause stress, feeling overworked, anxiety. And this could also be from something you hear, because it's the third aspect, something that's communicated to you. Now, Mercury is in a Papkatari Yoga, which can create anger in speech without thinking, which could actually aggravate the markets over inflated data. Now, lately, we've been seeing that crypto has been going up significantly. Now, I warned, and I've been warning for months, that this point in the Gandanta point where Rahu is right now, Jupiter was there years ago. I can't remember the date offhand. I believe it was the 90s or 80s. It's in my previous videos. Before that point, the markets rose and they got really, really high. And then something triggered it and people realized it was overinflated data. And then we had a financial collapse, which actually affected the entire world. Hopefully that doesn't happen again, because that was Jupiter. This is Rahu, which could be a lot worse. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but just to warn you. Now, the sun is at its debilitation degree, which is causing a lot of lack of self-esteem, criticism, lack of leadership that can lead to destruction and setbacks. A balance must be made to ensure that independent businesses are not affected by this unexpected change. This change is happening because the sun in Shawtee with Ketu is wanting us to become more independent and to stop relying on others. This is the star of independence. But when it's debilitated, it becomes codependent and relies too much on relationships and others in order to manage its business and partnerships. Now, it's time for us and some of us to go on our own. Some who don't realize this, what may occur would be like a breakup that forces us to go on our own if we didn't initiate it ourselves. Ketu is about surrender, so if you push against this in any way, it will cause more suffering. Leaders will be acting out of ego and fear. This has to do with open warfare, public enemies, and war. International affairs, lawsuits, foreign affairs, and policies. Opposing parties in the US and Canada. This is the liberals and the conservatives. Foreign trade, marriages, divorces. Jupiter being the lord of the 9th and the 12th house can also show us losses of foreign trade due to litigation. Religious, spiritual leaders acting compromised and not for the benefit of the homeland. There could be earthquakes and weather events affecting countries in the homeland. This could include fires and water. This could affect buildings and infrastructure. Also crops, mines, schools, and institutions. Now, the California fires, which was a huge event that happened in the past, I don't have the exact date, but when this happened, it was when Rahu was in Revati, and it will be transiting Revati in November. So that's something to look out for. These events and war could be triggered for a downturn in the markets, stocks, crypto, anything to do with communication and travel, import, export, signing contracts, and health matters. Sun is low vitality as well. So as Mercury has a close conjunction with its enemy Mars and Ketu, Mars is also the lord of the 8th house, showing us a death or transformation of relationship matters. The Sun in detriment with this conjunction isn't a good sign for the entertainment industry, gambling, speculation, sports, banks, stock exchange, gold, or money lenders. However, there is a mutual exchange, but there's still complications because of Ketu and that Mars and Mercury. So it's not as bad as it could be, but there's going to be some complications. Now, Saturn is in retrograde in the 11th house, and that's showing us that our aims and goals may have to change or are becoming a little more difficult. Challenges with parliament, national treasuries, vice presidents of countries, the state governing bodies, the will of the people, alliances with other countries may shift, and the termination of legacies, and also environmental control, especially in Canada. That could be climate change, regulations may have to change. Saturn is aspecting the first house, showing us that discipline and a serious approach is required. This could include health matters, as Saturn is in Shabihista and Rahu in Ashwini, which is health as well. There could also be a change of positions on the world stage that is made by the will of the people. Rahu is at the Gandanta point, like I said, so this can be a challenge for the next 6 months, which is an indicator of the war, health, and trade that could be affected. Ketu being in Chitra is the illusion, it's the magic. That's why we have to be really careful of what's real and what's not, and what's fake, and not to get caught up in the way things look. It's good at putting on that front. So to use discernment and higher self is necessary in the matters of war, the internet, what's communicated to us, the labor problems, the medical industry, and civil services. The media is always lying to you, just remember that. Now, this could greatly affect travel as well, transport agency, supply chains, how we communicate and trade, and new laws could be put in place to deal with this event. Now, this could also indicate weather disasters with water and rain. Like I said, Shawtee is also the independent self. So this could bring indecision when we are trying to be too balanced. It's time to be self-reliant in terms of what we believe, and to believe in ourselves instead of the illusions that are cast onto us, and not to remain in fear, but let things transform. Shawtee, where the sun is, has to do with businessmen, tradespeople of all types, wrestlers, all kinds of sports relying on breath control, singers, musicians, researchers, technology experts, independent enterprise, government-related services, pilots, professions connected to aviation industry, transport agency, socialites, anything using speech, podcasters, newsreaders, computer software industry, educators, teachers, lawyers, judges, politicians, trade union, diplomats, all these things could be affected. Now, when it comes to the US, this will be happening in the 5th house of the entertainment industry, and this is shifting. Also, the 11th house, which is its ambitions and the will of the people. This will be changing. Saturn will also station direct on November 4th on its moon, and its moon is the lord of the 8th house, which is actually with natal Rahu and Mercury, and it's in Rahu Dasha as well. And Mercury is the 7th house lord and the 10th house lord, so it's transforming and killing off its reputation and relationships. This could also mean the killing off or the transformation of the leaders and those who are in control in the government. Ketu will soon move in November into its 10th house and conjunct its Saturn, which is signaling a loss for the president, the government, its national status, the government services, and celebrities. It's affecting its ascendant lord and its 4th house lord. So this could signal weather disasters, like I mentioned, also the economy and its means of travel and communication. This will directly affect Palestine and Israel, and it will cause the war to escalate. It will start to involve other countries. I made a whole video about that, and you can check it out. I'll make sure I link it at the end. This is also directly affecting Canada as it's on its ascendant and descendant, Rahu and Ketu. Mars, Mercury, Ketu, and Sun are making a conjunction with its natal Saturn, and soon to be an exact conjunction around November 5th. Saturn is in its 10th house, and it's causing this problem with Trudeau, where the people are disagreeing with Trudeau and its alliances with other countries as well. So that's why you see that conflict happening. And this will only escalate as Saturn turns direct and starts to go even closer, and it will be within 3 degrees and making it an exact conjunction in January 2024. So that's just a little bit about what I see happening. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.